So now we're going to prepare to run Kamanja. The first thing we want to do is make sure that we clean up if we have had a previous run. You could skip this section if you have not ever run Kamanja on this before. You can look at the documentation online in the Quick Start Guide to see an example of stopping and starting Kamanja for one of the 4 samples. So first thing we want to do is stop the major players here in the Kamanja set of programs, which are Kafka and Kamanja itself and Zookeeper. And as the note says, a couple of notes here, if you have run the brew program to install Kamanja, then the command to stop will be just slightly different than it would be if you installed from binaries. Also, you should stop Kafka before you stop Zookeeper. So let's see here. Let's make sure that we copy that. Okay, and it ended with a command not found because we're trying both methods, both the one with zkserver.sh and zkserver without sh, just to cover the 2 ways this happens. Alright, so now let's just double check. We'll run these commands, which will tell Linux to tell us if any of these programs are still running, and we see that they are not. If they were, we might have to stop them with the kill command, the kill -9 command. Okay. So we've looked at that. So now let's go and make sure that we remove the various files that have been storing the information. All right, so these files are identified in the configuration files for each one of the programs. And if we've already gone through this, then these may not even exist. Okay, so now we've cleaned out all that. Now we can get down to actually trying to run Kamanja somewhat. We'll start off with this. Oops. Okay. So the first thing we'll do is start Zookeeper. And again, there might be 2 different ways to do it, depending on how you installed. Once we started Zookeeper, we can start Kafka. And we will see lots of output when we do that. And so we will have to go open a new terminal window to continue, because that one is being used up by CMANJA to print all those messages. By Kafka, I should say. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is create queues. This is not actually starting the CMANJA engine. This is just creating queues that will be used by Kafka and Zookeeper to work with the different messages that come through. Okay, so next we have to add the message definition. Remember, we made a JSON file to do that. Oops. Okay, we want to do this in our new window, which was covered up. So let's move that off to the side so it doesn't get covered up again. Now, back, what we'll do is we'll shrink this one down. Boom. And as the notes in the document say, it'll show us the bunch of message definitions that we have in the CMANJA directories. Now, I want to make sure we don't miss this one. It's actually the first one, so we'll say 1 here. And give it a moment to actually compile that message. Okay, it says message added successfully. Okay. So now we're going to add our PMML file. Using the CMANJA add model PMML command. And we see that it added successfully. Okay, now we're going to load the cluster configuration file, the one that we modified to add the associated message into. And this is another message, another command where it lists the available files and asks us to pick one. There we go, and it was added successfully. And next we're going to feed the actual data into CMANJA. So now we're ready to push data into the system, and there is a directory that contains files that help us to do that. So we'll go there and take a look at those. And we see that there are such files for various data sets, but not yet for ours. So we'll choose one of them and copy it. Then we will edit that one to make it specific to our data set. And there are two things that we need to change in here. One is there's a flag, an option called GZ, that determines whether we have a compressed input data file or not. Okay. And the next thing is the specification of the file where the data exists. So we'll change that to be specific to our data. Then we'll execute that to push the data in. Okay. Next. We will see what's happening over here. We'll watch the output queue, or the input queue, I should say. We see our data being pushed in. Next, we're going to actually start the Khamanja server. Oh, we need to go open another terminal window. Do that because the other one is occupied. So there's Khamanja starting up. And so now that window is occupied as well. So we see a bunch of data coming out there. Next, we'll open another terminal window. To capture the output data. Into a file so that we can actually look at later on what Khamanja is putting out for each of the lines of input data. So now that we have the data in a file, let's take a look at it. We'll open another terminal window. And we will take a look using this line here. And we see something that's similar to what's in the document. And just to point out some things in here as we go through this, which has embedded in it the outputs. So here's an output field. The name of the field is MPG. That's what we were trying to predict. So what we had passed in was this value, and so that was now we're going to compare that to what we did predict, and we see that they are very close. In fact, they're exactly the same. And then on the next record, we can look at the same kind of thing. Look at the value that we passed in the MPG field and the value that we predicted for MPG. And you can go through that and also compare that to the output that we produced from R, or rattle, and see that that those scores match up too. And that concludes the video. Thank you.